My sister's marriage was falling apart, so I took her to a stylist. On a Thursday, at 10 in the morning, my sister walked through my front door crying in a way I had never seen before. She didn't knock, didn't call ahead. She simply opened the door with the spare key I had given her years earlier and walked in sobbing so hard, my heart froze before she even managed to say a word. I dropped the coffee I was making, ran to her and held her by the shoulders. She could barely breathe. When she finally managed to form the words, she said, "He wants a divorce. He said he doesn't love me anymore." I froze for a second, trying to understand what was happening. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of breakfast together, birthday parties for the kids, vacations planned months in advance, shared bills, retirement plans discussed at the kitchen table, an entire life built together, brick by brick, decision by decision. And on an ordinary Tuesday, a day like any other, with no warning, no fight that would justify it, he simply packed his bags and left for a hotel, as if those 20 years could fit inside a rolling suitcase. My sister is 40 years old, and that morning, sitting in my kitchen, her trembling hands wrapped around a cup of tea she never touched, she didn't look like a woman who had lived 40 years intensely, with achievements, a career built through effort and sacrifice, 2 children raised with dedication and love. She looked like she'd lost the ground beneath her feet, her identity, even her own name. She kept quietly repeating, almost like a mantra of pain staring at some point on the wall. "I don't know who I am without him anymore. I don't know who I am." And I, holding her hand, not knowing exactly what to say, felt a pain that only someone who has watched a person they love fall apart right in front of them can truly understand. If you've ever gone through the end of a relationship or watched someone you love go through it, I want you to stay with me until the end of this video, because what I did for my sister in the weeks that followed didn't fix her marriage, but it fixed something perhaps even more important. It brought her back to life, back to herself. Before I continue, let me ask you something quick. If stories like this move you, subscribe here on the channel, because every week I bring real stories of transformation. With a lot of care, thinking of you on the other side of the screen, who needs to hear that starting over is possible. In the first days after that Thursday, my sister barely got out of bed. She canceled work commitments, making up excuses, canceled get-togethers with friends, completely stopped taking care of herself, avoided walking past the mirrors in her own house as if every reflection were an accusation. I visited her almost every day after work, brought her food because I knew she wasn't eating properly, sat with her in silence when she had no will to talk, and listened without judgment when she needed to let it all out. The same questions over and over. What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Should I have noticed sooner? And on one of those visits, while I was tidying her kitchen because the sink was full of dishes piled up for days, I realized something that changed the way I saw the whole situation. She wasn't only grieving the marriage. She was grieving herself, the woman she believed had disappeared along with that "I don't love you anymore." That's when I had an idea that, I admit, felt almost out of place at the time, almost frivolous in the face of such deep pain. I booked an appointment with a stylist a friend of mine had recommended months earlier, without telling my sister much about the reason, just saying it was a gift from me, a day just for the two of us, to get her out of the house and breathe some different air. She resisted a lot, said she wasn't in the right headspace for it, that it was absurd to think about clothes when her entire life was falling apart in front of her. I understood her resistance, but I insisted with all the love I had, because deep down, I knew something she still couldn't see through all that pain. Sometimes, before you can rebuild your life, you need to rebuild the way you see yourself. One doesn't exist without the other, and I wasn't going to let my sister disappear even further. And friend, what happened in that studio I will never forget as long as I live. The stylist, a woman in her 50s with a calm, warm presence, began by gently asking my sister without any rush how she felt wearing her own clothes day to day. She answered, her voice breaking, staring at the floor, barely able to hold eye contact. Invisible. I felt invisible for years, long before any of this happened. And right there, in that sentence spoken in the middle of the room, we understood together that the problem hadn't started on the Tuesday her husband left the house. It had started much earlier in a slow, silent process of fading away, day after day, year after year, taking care of everything and everyone. Work, kids, the house, her husband, the demands of an entire life, except herself. The first thing the stylist did was take my sister out of that loose, neutral, shapeless clothing, almost a hiding place made of fabric that she'd worn for years without even realizing it. She dressed her in a piece that defined her waist, in a vivid color I had never seen my sister wear in her entire adult life, and asked her to look at herself in the mirror calmly, with no rush to take it off or judge herself. My sister cried, not out of sadness this time, but because she said, looking at her own reflection as if reuniting with an old friend she thought she'd lost forever. I forgot I could look like this. I completely forgot this woman still existed inside me. Then came other discoveries, one after another, each one opening up a new space within her. The stylist showed her that the hair she pulled into the same tight bun every single day, thinking it was just practicality to keep up with a busy life, had actually become another way of hiding from the world, of not drawing attention, of taking up as little space as possible. A new haircut, lighter, with movement around the face, brought life back to her expression in a way that even surprised me when I saw it. She also showed that the dark, dull colors she'd worn non-stop for years, believing they slimmed and disguised her body, were actually dimming even further the sparkle she'd always had in her eyes. A sparkle that had stayed hidden behind so much gray and black piled up in her closet. And color by color, piece by piece, decision by decision, I watched my sister come back into existence in front of that mirror, inch by inch, as if she were slowly being revealed. If you know someone going through a similar moment, a grief, the end of a relationship, a phase of feeling invisible within their own life, consider sharing this video with that person right now. Sometimes a small gesture, like the one I gave my sister that day, is exactly what someone needs to remember that life still exists after the pain, no matter how impossible that may feel in the middle of the storm. There was one specific moment from that day I want to tell you about in detail, because it was the instant when everything truly changed, the turning point of the whole story. The stylist put her in a navy blue dress, structured, elegant, with a cut that shaped her body without any exaggeration, honoring every curve without hiding anything. She asked my sister to stand facing the mirror for 1 full minute in complete silence, not speaking, not moving, just looking. At first, my sister felt uncomfortable, fidgeting with her hands, avoiding her own gaze, saying it was strange to look at herself for so long without breaking it with some nervous comment. But after a few seconds, something in her visibly shifted. Her expression turned serious. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and said a sentence I still hold on to today, deep in my chest, like a treasure. That woman in the mirror doesn't look destroyed. She looks like she's just beginning again. It was right there, in that exact instant, inside that small studio with soft lighting, that I understood the day was never about clothes at all. It was never about clothes. It was about my sister rediscovering the visual, tangible, concrete proof that she was still whole, even after being so deeply hurt by someone who promised to stay forever and didn't. In the weeks that followed that day, I watched a transformation that went far beyond her appearance, one that spread almost effortlessly into other areas of her life. My sister started going out with friends again, scheduling coffees and lunches she'd been canceling for months. She started laughing again in a way I hadn't heard in a long time, even before the separation. A laugh that came from deep inside, unguarded. She went back to a self-care routine every morning, laying out her clothes the night before, calmly applying cream to her face, slowly brushing her hair, not to impress anyone, not for her husband, not for others, but because she rediscovered that taking care of herself was, in fact, a way of respecting herself, of telling herself that she mattered. And the most beautiful part of it all is that this change never depended at any point on what would happen with her marriage. Whatever happens between her and her husband, my sister will never lose sight of herself again. Of that I'm certain. There was a day, about 2 months after that first visit to the stylist, when my sister called me excited, telling me she'd gone to pick up the kids from school, and a mother she barely knew stopped to compliment how she looked, asked if she'd changed something in her life because she had a different glow, a different energy. My sister told me this laughing, a genuine laugh, saying, "I almost told her my marriage ended. Imagine her face." We laughed together on the phone, and it was the first time after everything that I heard my sister joke about her own pain without it hurting her from the inside, without her voice shaking mid-sentence. There was also a harder moment I need to tell you about, because real life isn't just a straight line of progress. About 3 months later, one evening, her youngest son asked when his dad was coming home, and my sister called me crying again, saying she felt like a fraud, that on the outside she looked strong, put together, resolved, but on the inside, it still hurt like the first day. And I think it's important to share this because transformation doesn't mean erasing the pain. It means learning to carry it differently, without letting it erase who you are. My sister kept going to therapy, kept crying when she needed to cry, but she also kept dressing with care, looking at herself in the mirror with respect, even on the bad days. Today, almost 6 months after that Thursday that changed everything, she's still in the process. Because things like this don't resolve overnight, and that's okay. Healing has its own timeline. The marriage didn't go back to what it was before, and maybe it never will, and that's okay too. Because she's learning to build a good life regardless of that answer. But the other day, she sent me a message that sums up everything I wanted to tell you today. A message I read and reread before recording this video. I spent 20 years learning to be someone's wife, someone's mother, everyone's caretaker. Now, for the first time in my life, I'm learning to be me. And you know the funniest part of all this? I actually like this woman I'm getting to know. If this story touched you in any way, leave a like right below, right now. Comment if you've ever gone through a moment of feeling invisible within your own life and how you found or are still looking for your way back to yourself. And subscribe to the channel because I'll keep bringing real stories like this one every week with the same care I had telling you my sister's story today. A big hug and see you in the next video.